You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
I am back. Rudrance for Black and White Sports 2. We're going to talk about the XFL ratings. And I was right, and I was wrong. Okay, I wanted to step up my game and do a little bit further research on the number of households that FX, ESPN2, ESPN actually reach. And I forgot about the mass ESPN exodus. I completely forgot about it. ESPN has gotten heavily involved in politics over the last... Well, they got involved with it about 5 years ago. Then they did a course correction. And then when the George Floyd incident happened, ESPN drove themselves off of this woke bridge. Hate to bring up politics, but it just is what it is. And a lot of people cut ESPN out of their lives. In fact, when I went to look, I was like, wow. There's like literally 13 million less homes that ESPN and ESPN2 reaches versus FX. However, there's been a point proven that being on ESPN2 or being on ESPN is a much better deal for the XFL than it is on FX. Why? My guess would be one is a sports network and one is not. I mean, FX is primarily known for, you know, shows like Justified and The Shield and, you know, all these different court programs they've got where they had an O.J. Simpson movie, that original movie, all that sort of thing. The Strain. FX has got very good scripted shows, by the way, but they're not a sports network. So it's pretty clear being on ESPN for the XFL is a big deal, and they're trying now to do a course correction, and this weekend's ratings probably proved a point to them as well. We already know they moved some games over back to ESPN and ESPN2. In fact, XFL Thursday Night Football is going to be on the actual mothership, the ESPN Network. So let's look at this, because the FX ratings, they got ugly for the XFL, but they were very solid over on ESPN. So it's pretty clear if people want football, they probably want to go to a sports network. So it is what it is. Also, you know, you got college basketball hard and heavy right now as we float over into March Madness. There's no doubt that's going to steal some viewers right now. I'm starting to think the XFL needs to think about some kind of positioning in the landscape of sports as far as moving up or down during the year. I don't know what they do. I don't know how they try to do it. You certainly don't want to go head-to-head against the NFL, right? And I don't think they can do it. Look, there's a dead period in sports for football between sort of a part of the end of June all the way to the first week of September. As far as pro football, you've got college that starts a little earlier. But and ESPN is certainly not going to move college games, because college games are going to draw viewers. And in most cases anyway, unless it's like the MAC, you know, those are going to get better ratings than the XFL gets. XFL hits new low in Saturday FX doubleheader, and it got ugly. As ESPN continues to move XFL games away from FX, it's not too hard to see why. This is Sports Media Watch. Saturday's XFL doubleheader, Houston and Orlando and San Antonio, Seattle averaged 405,000 and 343,000 viewers on FX, respectively, marking the two smallest audiences yet for the current iteration of the league, or the prior iteration 3 years ago. No prior XFL window had averaged fewer than 500,000 viewers, with the previous low being 528,000 last week on FX. Well, it would have been week 3, so 2 weeks ago. The sharp drop-off, even from the previous low, can likely be explained by the college basketball competition. Absolutely. A factor that the prior XFL did not contend with due to COVID. The XFL actually, I think, went a week or two sort of into that lockdown period, and then they quit playing too. Boy, they missed a big opportunity to just keep going, because UFC, even though UFC was so big, UFC exploded because they chose to fight during the lockdown. If the XFL would have kept playing even in empty stadiums, that might have been a massive win if Vince McMahon could have pulled that off. But he was working off of attendance, etc. It should be noted that rock bottom for XFL still compares favorably to other spring football leagues, most notably last year's USFL. Out of 15 USFL games on cable last season, USA Network and FS1, it had at least 11 average fewer than 300,000 viewers. Wow. An additional 3 games aired exclusively on Peacock, for which no Nielsen data is available. You can probably figure maybe 25,000 people watch those games. The difference between the USFL and the current XFL is that the former has a schedule weighted heavily towards broadcast television. Yeah, a bunch of USFL games were actually on broadcast antenna free TV, and the ratings were bigger, obviously. The 3 least watched XFL games have all aired on FX, as has 5 of the bottom 6. That does not count Week 1 simulcast that aired on both ESPN and FX. The league fared much better, or far better, as they say, on ESPN2 Sunday, averaging 691,000 viewers. Good God. That is, that's nearly a 300,000 viewer increase on ESPN2, averaging 691,000 for DC Vegas and 572,000 for St. Louis Arlington. The DC Vegas audience ranked 6th for the season out of the 16 total telecast. Due to the low numbers on FX Saturday, Week 4 of the season was the least watched yet, with an average of 506,000 viewers, down 11% from Week 3. ESPN has moved 3 upcoming XFL games from FX to either ESPN or ESPN2, starting with Houston-Seattle this Thursday. And I don't know how those ratings are going to look, because even though it's going to ESPN, that's a late broadcast game because it's in Seattle. Yeah, it's got like a 9:30 start to it, I think, Central Time or something like that. You can still suspect it's going to have pretty good ratings just because it's on actual ESPN, not the Deuce, not FX, actual ESPN. This would indicate to me that if possible, ESPN better, XFL, Dwayne Johnson, Danny Garcia, they better figure out a way to get these games off of FX over to actual sporting networks, okay? AKA move it to ABC, move it to ESPN, move it to ESPN2, because the difference in ratings is now startling, okay? Now it's truly significant, because I don't know if the casual fan just doesn't know the games are coming on FX, or if it's just never crossing their mind. You would think they would pull up a schedule, but again, hardcore fans of football like me are going to pull up the schedule and see where it's at. The casual football fan, probably not going to do that. All right? They're probably not going to do that. Also, it should be noted, I believe they had already picked the tournament games by the time that ESPN 2 game ended up hitting DC Vegas Sunday evening. Okay, so they had already picked the college March Madness schedule. Everybody already knew. They moved on, and viewers came back and watched the XFL. I don't know where this league is going. I don't. I truly don't. It depends on what they look at. I know that, look, there's a lot of sporting events that the XFL is beating in ratings, okay? A lot of them. But you've got a lot more players, all right, on a football team and a lot more expense. We know the attendance was way up, but at the end of the day, they have to be able to secure, an actual television contract. Now, it's my understanding they've worked this out through 2027 with ESPN and their family of networks. But if it doesn't draw the ratings they want it to, they'll still cancel it. It doesn't matter. All right. So we'll see. We'll see if they can at least get to a second season of the XFL for the very first time. So I don't know. Again, the expense on actual football versus, they're beating the shit out of the WNBA, for example. But there's only 12 players. There's only 12 players, and that league is subsidized by the NBA. And it's going to be interesting to see how bad the USFL is going to cut into ratings, too. Peace. I'm out. Till next time. Black and White Network supporters, make sure you go over and check out the Black and White Network merchandise store. 25% off USA First. 25% off USA First. Go now.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.